Welcome back, Troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a 2006 Gibson SG Goddess in the Roseburst finish. Now, the Goddess series has to be one of my favorite mid-2000s series of guitars. They were just a little bit before their time, because these actually didn't sell very well when they were new. Many of the colors actually had to be blown out at the end of their run, and these were a very shortly lived series. I believe they were only offered from 2006 to 2007. However, now flash forward 10 years, and these things have kind of become collector's items, because they offer a few very unique characteristics. First is the finish. These things have absolutely gorgeous finishes. They had both an SG and a Les Paul line, and they all had these finishes: Ice Burst, Sky Burst, Rose Burst, Violet Burst, and Black. Those finishes definitely made for very beautiful looking guitars in some non-traditional colors. Les Paul Goddesses are actually slightly thinner than normal. However, I think a lot of people confuse that the SGs are also slimmer. I've done the measurements and I really don't see any noticeable difference. So besides the finish, something else that makes these unique is they have a compensated wraparound tailpiece. Now, you can't adjust the intonation on these, so if you want perfect intonation, this probably isn't your guitar, or you're going to want to change this out. I know there's a famous lady player. She has a bridge that kind of looks like a small lyre, which is like a little harp, which I think looks really cool on these guitars. The other thing is they have specially wound pickups just for this series of guitars. Now, they're your typical 490R and 498T pickups, but as you can see, they have clear bobbins that let you see the colored wire underneath. Now, this colored wire corresponds with the finish of the guitar. This one is kind of the rose-colored one, and it matches with the Roseburst finish, and they also have these, I believe, on the black finish one. The Sky Burst has a blue-colored wire, and I believe they also have that on the Ice Burst. Now, the purples, I say, are the most special because they are the only one that got the purple-colored wiring, and I actually have a loose pickup here of one of those. Something else that's unique is they do have covers on the side, but just not covering the front. This way they have a little bit more class than a standard uncovered pickup. So if a fancy finish and fancy looking pickups wasn't enough for you, they even colored the Gibson headstock logo to match the guitar. The only ones that didn't get this colored headstock logo is the Ice Burst and the black one, simply because the white kind of corresponds with the finish already. These guitars really are just bare bones rockers. You just have a wraparound tailpiece, master volume, master tone, and a three-way selector switch. They have mahogany bodies with mahogany necks and ebony fretboards. That kind of makes them extra special because Gibson can no longer use ebony due to sourcing issues. Another characteristic of the Goddess series is they had their own special locking tuners that locked from the top. Now, this example, thankfully, somebody took those things off. I really hate those tuners with a passion. They're kind of hard to set up right, and they stick out like a whole nother inch, like they're maybe this tall. It makes your guitar look goofy, so somebody put regular Grovers on this one. So all in all, I think the Goddess series is finally getting the respect it deserves. Yes, these were USA guitars. Brand new, they were around, I think, a little over $1,000. But nowadays, it's not uncommon to see these sell for twice as much as they were new, simply because Gibson doesn't offer these finishes on hardly anything else. These are surely to be future collector's items. I would highly suggest checking out a Goddess Series SG or Les Paul. They're just fantastic. Now that we know a little bit about the Goddess series of guitars, let's go ahead and hear how this one sounds. Our clean tones come from a Gibson Super Gold Tone GA30 RV. Our dirty tones come from a Marshall JMP 1C. Now that we know how this goddess sounds, let's go ahead and take a look at its condition. This guitar is definitely not in mint condition. You can see you've got some scratches here on the headstock, and you also have some edge wear from where it was hanging on a stand. You have that on both sides. The truss rod works just fine. However, I think these screws have been replaced. Somebody probably took that off at one point in time to adjust the neck and then lost the screws or accidentally put the wrong ones back in. However, they work just fine. Now on the headstock here, you can see where Gibson shot the red lacquer over it. You can also kind of see it a little bit red around there as well. But there is a very small chip in that lacquer right there. And it looks like there's a small one right there as well. You also have a small little ding up here. And there's the typical lacquer checking lines around here where the holly veneer was put on top of the headstock. Now right here, that sure does look like a brake line, but what it really is an impact line, like to a cymbal or something. It's just kind of in a weird location, but it is definitely just a ding. It's not an actual crack. You can see it's a small impression and then just a light scratch. So overall, if you can live with some edge wear, the headstock's fairly clean for the most part. You still have the original nut on this one, and the original frets surprisingly show very minor wear. I believe they've been leveled and recrowned fairly recently. You can kind of see some tooling mark evidence of that on the fretboard in this area right there. But what that means for you is that these frets pretty much look just like new. I mean, they show very minor wear, if any at all. This is a genuine ebony fretboard, same stuff that you find on a Les Paul Custom. Now the neck profile on this one is, I would say it's a slim profile. Right, the face of the guitar is actually in pretty decent shape. I mean, once you get the light on it, you can see some playing scratches and some light impression dings like you're seeing right there. But overall, the guitar is fairly clean, on the front anyways. But here you can start seeing those impressions and scratch lines. I mean, it's not trashed, but it's definitely been played. Here we can see some more wear as well as some fingerprints just from handling the guitar. But there's no like deep gouges that really takes away from the guitar. The pickups sound great in this one. The action's really nice. I would say it's kind of a medium to medium low, so you can adjust it up and down to your preference. You also have some scratches on the pick guard itself. Alright, the back of the headstock for this one reads 00896047-3, made in USA, which makes it a early 2006 model. You have a small ding right here that's down to the wood, and your typical edge wears we were talking about before. Again, these are not the original Grover tuners that came on here, so you've got regular Grovers You can see you've got some pitting to the chrome, but overall they work pretty well. No breaks, cracks, or repairs on this one. You can see there are some light impressions on the neck. However, nothing that you're really going to feel while you play. Something I do want to point out here is there is a visible and somewhat feelable line that runs up and down the neck. What that is where the binding truly ends and the neck begins. Because the binding actually goes down a little bit further, and over time, especially on black finish and white finished guitars, you'll see this line start to appear. You also have that line on the side that you'll be seeing as well. So it's nothing to worry about, but it is there. And you also have these binding split lines. What that is as the wood expands and contrasts in different temperatures and humidities, the steel frets don't. So those lines aren't the binding breaking, it's just where they've expanded a little bit. You find that on pretty much every Gibson if it's, at least a few years old and not always kept in a home studio. Something else I do want to make mention of is there's a small ding right here in the binding. And you might be able to feel that while playing. I personally didn't, but I do want you to be aware of that. Alright, the back of this guitar, even when we get the light on it, it's not completely chewed up by buckle rash or anything, so I was kind of happy to see that. However, on this horn where it rests against your body, you can see it kind of has some white discoloration to it. I'm not sure if a really good polish and buff job would get that out, but it is there. That's kind of the only real flaw to the back, is it just kind of looks like it's dusty, but it's not dust. You do have some light scratches, fingerprints, and all that, but this guitar is all original except for the tuners and maybe a few screws. Got an impression there, but again, it's just been played. Take a look around the side of the guitar. You can see, again, you've got some light nicks and dings. Right here it looks like you got a scuff mark and a small ding. But overall, even the sides aren't in too bad of shape, just your light average wear and tear. Blacklight test time. You can see this one does actually glow a little bit, even though it's not that old. That's because it's probably been played in some smoky bars. Again, this guitar does have a slight smoke smell to it, so if you don't like that, don't buy this guitar. But everything on the face of the headstock is good. You can see those small little lacquer chips though. Take a look at the body here. Everything's looking good as far as the finish goes. It almost kind of looks like a iced tea burst under the Blacklight. Back of the headstock, here you can see that there are no breaks, cracks, or repairs. Take a look at that impression line. You can see it is just that, a ding, not an actual crack. You can see the neck doesn't have any missing finish on it or anything, so it's definitely a nice smooth player. And the back of the guitar, once again, no touch-ups here either, as well as the sides. So this one definitely passes the Blacklight test with flying colors. So overall, if you're looking for a drop-dead gorgeous SG, this is definitely one to consider. It's been played, it's got some player's wear, it's got scratches, it's got some impressions. You don't have to be scared to play this one. And let me tell you, the Roseburst finish is hard to find. If you think you might be interested in owning this Gibson SG Goddess in the very rare and desirable Roseburst finish, feel free to contact me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Troglys, Troglys. Thank you, Troglytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.